Guys, is Shizzy going to hit the fizzy in Iceland? Will the next eruption really create a bang in multiple areas? And everything that they have been trying to avoid over the last 8 months, so to speak, save Grindavik from lava flow and eruption, kind of has worked, saving the Swartsengi power plant and their most precious gem, the Blue Lagoon and the lagoonies. Guys, will that work? Well, what I hear from Iceland is not sounding very optimistic and very, very good. They're saying we could see an eruption inside of Grindavik. They're saying it will be hard to protect the Blue Lagoon in the next eruption. And here it comes. The next eruption is at the front door because the magma chamber has reached that point, the lower limit again, that it always has when it starts the next eruption. So we're in the danger zone again. So they're kind of saying could happen in the next 3 weeks. But what are they saying about Grindavik? And why can't they protect the lagoonies, guys? This sounds scary, and I will exactly tell you what's going on right now in this video, so stay tuned. It's a really good one, and leave it an early like if you can, because it helps to push this out by the YouTube algorithm a little bit more so that more people can see it. So thanks for this early like, guys. I appreciate it. Let's start with what is happening in the magma chamber that is right underneath the Blue Lagoon and the Swartsengi power plant. And that bugger keeps filling up again. Remember, several volcanologists and geologists said, no, if the last eruption stops, which has stopped right now, this is going to be the last one. The whole thing will end this summer. And, although they're saying next one is imminent, there's still quite a few scientists that are saying it'll be over this summer. So let's look at the hard facts. What is the Icelandic Meteorological Office saying? They're saying the magma accumulation in the shallow magma chamber underneath Swartsengi has remained fairly stable in the recent weeks. It's still rising continuously. The magma's filling up in there continuously. They have done model estimations, and they estimate that around 13 million cubic meters of magma have been added to that magma chamber underneath Swartsengi since the magma last started flowing out from that magma chamber into the Sutnuka crater series, causing the eruption there on May 29th. So we know it has added 13 million cubic meters. We're not 100% sure how much is in there total, how much was still in there when the eruption ended. But usually we know when it was accumulating something between 8 and 13 million cubic meters, that was the point when the volcano said, watch me, I'm coming. So there are some estimations that with each eruption passing, we need more in the magma chamber to trigger the next event. So we need more pressure for the next event. So 13 million is quite high. I think we had over 21 million cubic meters when the last eruption started. So we have a little bit of time. I think that's why they're probably saying 3 weeks. They're saying the upper limit, the lower limit is now 13 million cubic meters and the upper limit is 19 million cubic meters. So they're saying if we assume that between 13 and 19 million cubic meters of magma would be needed to be added under Swartsengi to build up enough pressure to trigger a new magma flow that would result in an intrusion, remains underground, or an eruption, it comes up, then the models suggest that there is a very high probability that this will happen within the next 3 weeks already. But they're mentioning the Krafla eruptions again. They're comparing this. The The Icelandic MET Office is saying, we point out that from the experience we have from the Krafla eruptions, that shows that as the number of magma flows increases, eruptions, a greater amount of magma and more pressure is needed. That's what I just said. So they say if it's assumed that about 20 million cubic meters need to be accumulated, as was seen on May 29th when this eruption started, that amount will be reached in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So this is based on the fact that the magma inflow into the magma chamber remains unchanged from the current level. So yeah, probably 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a little longer, but it's probably definitely going to happen again. They have updated their hazard map, but nothing significantly. What they're saying when they release this hazard map is that the latest data, the analyzations that they've done of how the location of the eruption has developed during the last volcanic eruptions in this Sutnuka crater series here in zone 3, the data indicates that the eruption activity is moving, and here it comes, further south and closer to Grindavik with each event. So the volcano is coming closer, and let's not forget, the volcano already got Grindavik in January when there all of a sudden fissure was opening further south, basically at the edge of Grindavik, burning down 3 homes. And they were just lucky that this eruption didn't last very long. Otherwise, it really would have flowed right into Grindavik. And so it's getting closer. That is not good. And we've seen that with the recent earthquake swarms that we also had before the last eruption. It was moving like southwest of Grindavik. So not really good. And it's getting harder and harder to defend Grindavik. It was a close call with the defense walls already. We had some magma, some lava creeping over the eastern part of the defense wall, not in the last eruption, but the one before. And then swartsengi, like basically in the last days of the last eruption, it was flowing over the defense walls, and it was really flowing. It was not creeping like it did in Grindavik. No, really red flowing lava was approaching swartsengi. And if it then did go further, Blue Lagoon, or if it crawls along the defense walls longer, it can go over the Blue Lagoon. But we'll talk about this in a minute, guys. Let's a little bit stick here what they're saying about Grindavik. So coming closer to Grindavik with each eruption, and we've had quite a few eruptions. So are we so close to Grindavik that Shizzy will hit the fizzy? So they're saying, taking into account, when they take into account their new analyzations, and also that since November 2023 that the earthquakes have caused significant fissure movements and openings in Grindavik, within Grindavik, right? The risk due to eruption, lava flow, and gas contamination is now assessed as significant, but it was previously assessed as like not so severe, but not so significant. So the changes in these individual risk zones that they have done now, it's basically 3 and 4. In 3, we always had the eruptions, and 4, that is Grindavik. They say they do not at this stage affect the overall risk assessment within them. So they're not putting it to red in Grindavik, but they want to let us know about this risk. But overall, it's still orange because there's no eruption happening right now. There is no lava flow right now. But you know what? I see definitely zone 4. I see that closer to red. And I also see zone 1 red, because the lava flow, if zone 1, Blue Lagoon, swartsengi, that can cause major issues. That's why also the news are saying here, the MBL, the morning newspaper of Iceland, just said increased probability of a volcanic eruption within Grindavik. And we have seen how these eruptions look, how they build after a few days, these huge cones and craters. Imagine that within Grindavik. Grindavik's done. It's absolutely done. And it's not out of the question because there are so many underground fissures and cracks and sinkholes already in Grindavik that mostly were started during the earthquake scenario on November 10th when everything started. And then they started in lengthening and widening and new cracks formed. Remember that worker vanished. They couldn't find him. They went down in that deep sinkhole. There must be underground tunnels. So magma is always looking for the easiest way. And if it reaches south enough that it can reach that tunnel system, in my opinion, wow, then it can come out at multiple areas of Grindavik because it looks like a Swiss cheese underneath there. And many of you have said, well, if that happens, at least all the cracks are filled up and then they can rebuild. I don't know, guys. I really don't know. And yeah, they're also saying, this is also news, it's more difficult to protect the Blue Lagoon in a new eruption. And remember the news when the last eruption stopped and they were really fighting that sudden lava flow that did creep towards the defense wall. Everything looked black, solidified lava, and then right at the defense wall, all of a sudden this red glowing worm opened and it was flowing. So this was building a lava river underneath the already solidified lava, and then it was coming. And they said on June 25th, oh wow, that was a good thing that the eruption ended at this point, because they were fighting it with water, with dozers, throwing gravel at it, but it wasn't that far from already beginning infrastructure of the power plant, the overland piping systems and stuff like this. So they were sweating, and now they're building the defense walls, trying to improve them. They said that in the area where the lava has breached the Swartsengi defense wall, they already have made it higher. It's at 9.5 meters right now. But what you cannot forget, that's not that much higher than the lava carpet, because with each eruption, that lava carpet keeps building up on itself, right? It's getting higher and higher and higher. And in Grindavik, it had reached a height higher than the defense walls. So in some areas, it's 20 meters, 16 meters. And in general, they only built the defense walls to 8 meters in height. So then they were trying in Grindavik to increase them to 12 meters. But, you know, if an eruption keeps going on longer, the lava keeps building up longer and it's getting higher, higher. It's changing the landscape. And that's the problem as well, because it has changed the landscape. Their lava flow models, their lava predictions, they're not valid anymore because the heights and the elevations have changed. So what they would need to do is they would need to really make a new topographic model. And I just released a video about what's going on at Etna and Stromboli, and I explained it to you how they conduct these topographic grid models so that they know how the crater looks, and they're pretty fast with what they're doing. So I think they should do this here as quick as possible too, because right now, basically, I think they're running blind a little bit. They really can't tell you where will the lava flow. But news was it's more difficult to protect the Blue Lagoon in a new eruption. They're not speaking about the power plant. Basically, when the last breach happened at that defense wall, they were only talking about the power plant because that comes first, and then the Blue Lagoon is attached to the power plant because it's getting the wastewater from the geothermal power plant. It's clean water, right? It's a geothermal plant. So they're talking about the Blue Lagoon, and that's not good. And especially one volcanologist, Haraldur Sigurdsson, he says if there's a similar eruption like the one we've just seen, it will be very, very difficult. He says the pile of lava that is in the area of that Sudnuka crater, where we always had these rift zones opening, it has built up, and it would be more difficult to control the flow of the magma and predict its direction. So therefore they can say, oh, the flow model says it's going to be east of Swartsengi, west of the Blue Lagoon or whatever. So let's increase the walls there. Let's build a second row of walls there so that we catch incoming lava should there be a breach. So I guess they have to prepare for all directions and they have to build walls everywhere. And I think they're thinking about building protection walls within the Swartsengi zone. So within the existing ring of protection walls, build something extra for the Blue Lagoon. But the difficult point is you're coming to a point where will you divert the lava? If you're building more walls, where should it go? Let's say there's a breach inside that ring there. So let's say it comes again, like in the last eruption, and you build a wall that protects the Blue Lagoon, then you lose the power plant. Because the problem is, if you go further south, there's Mount Thorbjorn that will block it, and then if it keeps coming, it'll build up and then push back towards the Blue Lagoon. So I think one way that they can do, they can try to divert it further north, but that doesn't look like the lava really wants to flow north. It did flow along the northern defense wall around Swartsengi, and it was creeping forward there, and it was pushing south. It wanted to go south. So the defense walls were keeping it from going south. So what's the solution? I think maybe they have to sacrifice Grindavik, the main access road that basically comes from Keflavik, from Reykjavik. You go down Grindavik to access the Blue Lagoon, and then you go straight down south to access Grindavik. And of course, you can take Nesvigur to go around. If you want to go to Grindavik, but to access the Blue Lagoon, they built another road because Grindavik is basically always blocked by lava flows. The lava flow always flows over Grindavik. Has done this multiple times at the doorstep of Grindavik along the defense wall and multiple times at Swartsengi. So sacrifice Grindavik. Okay, divert the lava away from Swartsengi, but then it's flowing south to Grindavik. So then you would have to use most likely your western defense wall and divert it around Grindavik there. But that is getting complicated, guys, especially like I said, if the eruption will last longer. They're saying, there's only so many times that we're able to rebuild these defense walls and make them higher. One thing we know, it wasn't ready for the last eruption, but hopefully it will have arrived soon, is more pumps, stronger systems to cool down the tongue of the lava with water so that it solidifies there and builds a natural blockage against what's coming behind. They tried this in the 70s in Vestmannaeyjar to save their port. They were able to do that, but they had to divert it. So it was flowing somewhere else over homes, houses. So you cannot stop it. You can't say stop here and build up and don't come. If it's pushing south, it is pushing south. And if it's going to erupt inside Grindavik, well, game over. And then it will also flow into the water, into the sea, probably cause explosive events there. Chlorine gas will build up. If you've seen my videos about the recent Stromboli eruption in Italy, there it was running down, they call it the slide of fire, into the sea and was causing impressive smoke and steam and explosive events when the lava was mixing with the water. So what this Haraldur Sigurdsson says, if there is the next eruption, he says the pile of lava in that area of the Sutnuka crater has risen and it would be more difficult. We know that. And he says, we need to think about protecting the Blue Lagoon and Grindavik. So we need to have a plan for that. He says a lot of work is done to do that. But he says if this eruption follows the same direction as the fissure, like where the fissure goes, it should be fine. But he says we should continue to work on the defense walls and be done with everything, especially, and he says that, especially at the Blue Lagoon. So I don't know if they're so fine if it flows along the crater, because it flows south, it flows a little bit north, and then it spreads out. And if it spreads out to the west, it's a problem for Swartsengi and for Grindavik. So yeah, I don't think he wants to create panic, but the fact that they even mention the Blue Lagoon, their gem, their valued tourist attraction that brings the money in for them, that they always leave open until the last second to rake the money in, that they even mention that this could be an issue, tells you something, in my opinion. And he says, it's the lava builds up like a turtle. It builds like a mountain. And he says every time that we see an eruption and lava's coming out of that crater, the lava carpet rises between 5 to 10 meters. Think about the original defense walls are 8 meters high. If they have 9.5 meters right now at Swartsengi, that doesn't last you very long, right? And he says, if we have that turtle and the shield becomes larger and larger and higher, that affects the flow, and then it becomes really difficult to predict the direction of the next eruption. So guys, I'm sorry that I don't have better news from Iceland, but it is what it is. I'll monitor it for you. There's going to be another Campi Flegrei video out there because there's something stunning. I have to say stunning that we need to talk about. Check out my last video about Stromboli and Etna. I'm explaining really the physiology of these mountains, of these eruptions. Etna just erupted yesterday. Really strong eruption, powerful, like shooting down this lava. It was amazing, and it keeps doing that, and so does Stromboli. And in Stromboli they're saying it's out of the ordinary, right? So I was making this video, it's in the end screen, explain you what happened. The top of both volcanoes has changed, one to the lower, one higher. It's very, very interesting to understand what these mountains are doing. And while we're waiting for, the Icelandic volcano to tell us, hold my beer, check out these other videos, guys. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. If you want to support the channel any further, I've got this buymeacoffee.com site. It's for free to register there and see my posts and some pictures of Rudy and Eddie. And of course, the supers here, guys. You guys are awesome. It helps my channel a lot. You know what I'm using it for my farm and for my animals. So we all say thank you. Guys, I hope if it's summer where you are right now and if it's hot, stay cool, stay safe, cool down if you can. I hope you're having a nice summer, that you can go to swim and that you're not affected by too much wildfires, smog, or power outages, or any other catastrophes that come with it in some areas of the world, unfortunately, right now. So guys, check out my video about the sinkhole alley in the US. It's in a state, you wouldn't believe it, major tourist attraction, and it's massive. More than 30,000 sinkholes that swallow multiple homes at the same time, swallow you with your bed while you're sleeping. They can be as deep as 500 feet. So guys, check out that video. It's a really, really good one. It's in the end screen as well. So that keeps you busy until my next update. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.